Under the fluorescent glow of Memorial Hospital's parking lot, Dr. Kimberly Washington's exhaustion from a grueling 16-hour shift weighed heavily on her shoulders. The cool night air offered little comfort as she fumbled for her car keys, her mind already drifting to the warm bed awaiting her at home. Her navy blue scrubs, though wrinkled from a day of surgeries, still bore the embroidered insignia of the pediatric surgery department where she'd served as chief resident for the past 2 years. As she approached her vehicle, the familiar sight of her silver sedan brought a fleeting sense of relief. Parking has always been convenient here, no long walks, no tight spots, just a straightforward end to her night. Yet, as she reached for the door handle, the screech of tires against asphalt shattered her peaceful reverie. 2 police cruisers suddenly blocked her path, their lights painting the concrete in harsh reds and blues. Before she could process what was happening, officers emerged from the vehicles, weapons drawn. Their sudden appearance was jarring, the professionalism expected delayed by the blatant aggression. Kimberly's heart raced, but her surgeon's instincts kept her movements slow and deliberate. "Officers, I'm Dr. Washington, I work here," she began, her voice steadied despite the rising panic. "Hands where we can see them. Step away from the vehicle." The command rang out, aggressive and urgent. Kimberly's mind raced. She glanced around, noting the empty parking lot and the late-night silence that seemed to press in on her from all sides. "Please, I'm a doctor. I just finished a shift, on the ground, now." An officer roughly grabbed her arm, forcing her to her knees. The cold pavement bit through her scrubs as another officer cuffed her hands behind her back. Her professional composure strained against the rising panic, but she maintained eye contact, a silent plea for understanding. "There's been a mistake," she managed, her voice calming the situation for a fraction of a second. "My ID is in my pocket, I'm a pediatric surgeon here. We have reports of a shoplifter matching your description from the Plaza Mall. Black female in scrubs, approximately 5 feet 7 inches. The officer's tone carried an edge of dismissal that made her stomach turn. Dr. James Chen, a colleague from cardiology, emerged from the hospital entrance. "What's going on?" "That's Dr. Washington, she just finished operating on a 6-year-old. More hospital staff gathered, including nurses and residents who had worked alongside Kimberly for years. They protested vehemently, showing their own badges, attempting to verify her identity. The night shift supervisor even brought out her personnel file. But the officers remained unmoved. "We have to follow protocol. She matches the description." As they led her to the cruiser, Kimberly's pager buzzed urgently against her hip. Her heart sank, she recognized the emergency code. Somewhere in the hospital, a child needed immediate surgery. "Please," she pleaded, "I'm on call. There's a surgical emergency. You can verify everything, just check my credentials." The officers ignored her pleas, their grip tightening as they ushered her into the back of the cruiser. The doors slammed shut, plunging her into darkness except for the intermittent bursts of flashing lights outside. The next 6 hours passed in a blur of fluorescent lights and cold metal benches at the police station. Despite multiple calls from the hospital administration and even the chief of surgery, the police insisted on following procedure. They questioned her repeatedly about her presence in the parking lot, seeming to dismiss her consistent answers about being a surgeon ending her shift. Inside, Kimberly's mind was torn between frustration and fear. She knew the system was flawed, but she hadn't believed she'd be personally affected. The sterile environment of the interrogation room offered no solace, the impersonal questions stripping away her dignity one by one. Meanwhile, another surgeon had to be called in from home to perform the emergency appendectomy she should have handled. The delay could have cost the young patient their life. The weight of that knowledge pressed down on her, adding another layer of helplessness to her already compromised situation. It wasn't until hospital legal counsel arrived with irrefutable documentation and threats of a lawsuit that the police finally released her. No apology was offered, just a mumbled explanation about her, fitting the description. As she walked out, the cold metal of the handcuffs still attached to her wrists reminded her of the night's ordeal. The incident sparked immediate outrage within the medical community. Investigation revealed a disturbing pattern. Over the past year, 12 other black female medical professionals in the area had been stopped or detained based on similarly vague descriptions. A nurse practitioner handcuffed while wearing scrubs at a gas station. A radiologist detained while walking to her car. A medical resident questioned aggressively while buying coffee in her hospital uniform. Dr. Washington's case became a rallying point. The hospital staff organized protests, demanding accountability and reform. The local medical association issued formal complaints about the targeting of healthcare workers of color. National media picked up the story, highlighting how even the most accomplished black professionals weren't immune to racial profiling. Kimberly threw herself into advocacy work alongside her surgical duties. She testified at city council meetings, sharing how the incident had affected not just her, but potentially endangered a patient's life. She helped establish new protocols for police interactions with medical personnel and worked with civil rights organizations to document and challenge patterns of racial profiling. However, advocacy took its toll. The emotional and psychological strain of reliving the incident through testimonies and protests weighed heavily on her. Nights became restless, her mind replaying the fear and helplessness of her wrongful arrest. Yet, she found solace in solidarity. The support from her colleagues, family, and community provided the strength she needed to continue. At home, Kimberly's husband, Marcus, a high school history teacher, and their daughter, Aisha, a bright and inquisitive 16-year-old, became pillars of support. Marcus shared his own experiences of subtle biases in the education system, while Aisha became an active participant in community meetings. Her youthful energy injecting new perspectives into the dialogue, their home became a hub of activism. Evenings were spent strategizing with local leaders, drafting petitions, and organizing community forums. The family understood that dismantling systemic racism required collective effort, and they were determined to contribute in every way possible. Kimberly partnered with renowned civil rights attorney, Elena Martinez, to pursue legal action against the police department. Elena, a fierce advocate with a history of winning landmark cases, saw in Kimberly's situation an opportunity to set a precedent against racial profiling of professionals. The lawsuit garnered widespread attention, drawing in witnesses from across the community. Former victims came forward, recounting their own similar experiences, creating a compelling narrative of systemic abuse. The case highlighted not only the individual injustices but also the broader societal issue of racial bias within law enforcement. The court proceedings were intense, the courtroom filled with tension as each side presented their case. The defense argued that the arrest was a matter of protocol and that any resemblance to a suspect was purely coincidental. However, Elena skillfully dismantled this argument, presenting evidence of the repeated targeting of black female professionals and highlighting patterns that went beyond isolated incidents. Expert testimonies shed light on implicit bias, explaining how stereotypes can subconsciously influence decision-making processes. Sociologists and psychologists provided insight into the deep-rooted prejudices that pervade societal institutions, emphasizing the need for comprehensive training and accountability. Despite facing aggressive legal tactics and attempts to discredit the plaintiffs, the case gained momentum. Public support swelled, with demonstrations and rallies calling for justice and reform. The media spotlight intensified pressure on the police department, compelling them to acknowledge the issue and commit to change. The wrongful arrest of Dr. Washington had a profound impact on Cedar Falls. Trust in law enforcement plummeted as more cases came to light, shaking the foundation of the community's relationship with its protectors. Schools faced disruptions as students protested, demanding a safer and more equitable environment. Local businesses experienced boycotts, organized by those advocating for police reform and accountability. Within the medical community, the incident sparked a movement towards greater solidarity among black professionals. Support groups formed, providing a space to share experiences and strategies for coping with discrimination. Mentorship programs were established, pairing young black medical students with experienced professionals to navigate the challenges of their careers. Kimberly found herself at the forefront of these initiatives, her leadership inspiring others to speak out and take action. She organized workshops on recognizing and combating microaggressions, emphasizing the importance of mental health support for those affected by systemic racism. Her efforts fostered a sense of unity and resilience, empowering the community to demand and implement meaningful change. Under mounting pressure, the Cedar Falls Police Department was forced to confront its issues. Captain Robert Davis, the head of the department, held emergency meetings to address the growing unrest. Recognizing the severity of the situation, he initiated a comprehensive review of departmental policies and practices. One of the first steps was the implementation of mandatory training programs focused on de-escalation techniques, cultural sensitivity, and recognizing implicit bias. The department also established an independent oversight committee, tasked with investigating complaints of misconduct and ensuring accountability. Additionally, Captain Davis appointed a diversity officer, Maria Hernandez, to lead efforts in fostering an inclusive and equitable work environment. Hernandez, a black woman with a background in community relations, worked closely with local leaders and activists to bridge the gap between the police and the community. Despite these reforms, resistance remained within the ranks. Lieutenant Thomas Green, a longtime officer with a staunch belief in traditional policing methods, viewed the changes as unnecessary and burdensome. He argued that the focus should remain on maintaining law and order, not altering established protocols. Green's opposition created friction within the department, undermining efforts to implement meaningful change. Yet, Captain Davis remained steadfast, emphasizing the importance of evolving with societal values to better serve and protect all members of the community. Months into the implementation of the reforms, tensions within the Cedar Falls Police Department reached a boiling point. Lieutenant Green convened secret meetings with a group of officers who shared his dissenting views. The faction opposed the mandatory training, viewing it as a threat to their autonomy and an infringement on their policing methods. During one such meeting, Green proposed a plan to resist the changes, suggesting that the officers would downplay the importance of the training and continue with their established practices. He believed that maintaining their traditional approach was the key to preserving the department's integrity and effectiveness. Kimberly, aware of the brewing resistance, reached out to Maria Hernandez, the diversity officer. Together, they sought to address the underlying concerns of the officers, emphasizing that the reforms were not meant to undermine their authority but to enhance their ability to serve the community with fairness and respect. However, Green's influence within the department was significant. He smuggled anti-reform literature into meetings and subtly encouraged officers to voice their discontent during training sessions. The environment became increasingly polarized, with factions forming on either side of the issue. One evening, as Kimberly prepared to leave for a community forum, she received an urgent call from Elena Martinez. A new incident had occurred, one that could either make or break the reform efforts. Officer Daniels, a respected member of the department but rumored to harbor latent biases, had involved himself in a controversial arrest similar to the one that had wrongfully detained Kimberly. This time, the victim was a black woman, Tanya Brooks, a successful entrepreneur accused of shoplifting at an upscale boutique. The details were eerily similar to Kimberly's case: no substantial evidence, vague descriptions, and a swift arrest that shattered Tanya's sense of security. Tanya, a regular customer known for her philanthropic work, found herself entangled in a legal nightmare based on nothing more than her race and attire. Elena and Kimberly knew that this pattern needed to end. They intensified their efforts, coordinating with civil rights organizations and leveraging media coverage to shine a light on the department's shortcomings. The incident had rekindled public outrage. And the community's demands for justice grew louder. The case against Officer Daniels unfolded with striking parallels to Kimberly's wrongful arrest. Tanya Brooks, despite presenting shop receipts and witness testimonials attesting to her innocence, was detained and charged based on a weak description provided by store security. Elena Martinez filed a lawsuit on Tanya's behalf, emphasizing the recurring nature of such incidents and their impact on the African American community. The courtroom became a battleground for systemic change, with both plaintiffs and defendants presenting their narratives to the judge and jury. Kimberly's testimony carried significant weight, as her own experience underscored the pervasive issue of racial profiling within the department. Her calm demeanor and articulate presentation of facts highlighted the inconsistency and prejudiced nature of the arrests. As the case progressed, it became clear that Officer Daniels' actions were not isolated. Investigations revealed that he had been involved in at least 3 other questionable arrests, all involving black female suspects with no substantial evidence. This pattern of behavior prompted a citywide review of policing practices, extending beyond Cedar Falls. The legal battles galvanized the Cedar Falls community. Grassroots organizations organized marches, vigils, and town hall meetings to demand accountability and transparency from the police department. Local businesses displayed signs supporting the movement. And social media platforms buzzed with calls for reform. Kimberly, now a prominent advocate for justice, used her platform to bridge the gap between the community and law enforcement. She facilitated dialogues where officers could hear first-hand accounts of the impact of racial profiling, fostering empathy and understanding. Marcus, Kimberly's husband, contributed by educating his students about civil rights and the importance of standing against injustice. His classroom became a space for critical discussions, empowering the next generation to advocate for equality. Aisha, their daughter, took on a leadership role within the student council, organizing awareness campaigns and fundraising events to support affected individuals and families. Her passion and determination inspired her peers, reinforcing the idea that change was possible through collective effort. Amidst the external battles, Kimberly faced personal struggles. The relentless fight for justice left little time for self-care, and the emotional toll of witnessing systemic injustice weighed heavily on her. She often found herself questioning the effectiveness of her efforts, grappling with moments of doubt and exhaustion. Marcus, understanding the depth of her pain, became her anchor. Their relationship deepened as they navigated the challenges together, finding strength in their shared commitment to justice. They leaned on each other, their love serving as a beacon of hope amidst the darkness. Aisha, too, dealt with her own set of challenges. Balancing schoolwork, activism, and her personal life required resilience and adaptability. She struggled with the fear that her efforts might not lead to tangible change, but Kimberly's unwavering support kept her motivated. After months of legal battles, community mobilization, and relentless advocacy, the day of the verdict arrived. The courtroom was packed, with supporters, media personnel, and members of the Cedar Falls community in attendance. The atmosphere was charged with anticipation and hope. Elena Martinez presented a compelling case, meticulously outlining the pattern of racial profiling within the department and the personal testimonies of Kimberly and Tanya. The evidence was irrefutable: officer testimonies that contradicted departmental protocols, leaked internal memos revealing systemic biases, and expert witnesses shedding light on implicit bias and its effects on policing. The prosecution emphasized the need for accountability and systemic change, warning against allowing such prejudiced practices to continue unchecked. The defense, however, attempted to cast doubts, suggesting that these incidents were isolated and that Officer Daniels acted out of a misplaced sense of duty rather than inherent bias. As the jury deliberated, the room remained tense. Minutes felt like hours until the foreperson stood to deliver the verdict, on the charge of wrongful arrest and racial profiling. We find the defendant, Officer Daniels, guilty. A collective sigh of relief and jubilation swept through the courtroom. The decision was a significant victory for Kimberly, Tanya, and the entire community of Cedar Falls. It was a testament to their resilience and unwavering commitment to justice. The guilty verdict sent shockwaves through the Cedar Falls Police Department. Officer Daniels was immediately suspended pending further disciplinary actions, and the Independent Oversight Committee initiated a series of reforms aimed at preventing future incidents of racial profiling. Captain Davis, recognizing the monumental impact of the verdict, doubled down on his commitment to reform. He initiated mandatory community policing workshops, integrated more diverse hiring practices, and created a transparent feedback system where citizens could report misconduct without fear of retaliation. Lieutenant Green, facing both internal and external pressure, began to soften his stance. Witnessing the tangible effects of the reforms and the undeniable truth of the jury's decision, he approached Kimberly for a private discussion. "Dr. Washington," Green began, his tone more conciliatory than before. "I saw your case and what happened today. Maybe there's merit to some of these changes. Perhaps we need to rethink how we operate." Kimberly regarded him thoughtfully, sensing the genuineness in his approach. "I appreciate that, Lieutenant. It's a process, but every step towards understanding and accountability counts." Their collaboration marked a turning point, symbolizing the potential for unity and progress within the department. As more officers embraced the reforms, the atmosphere within Cedar Falls began to shift. The once hostile environment gave way to a more inclusive and respectful policing culture, where accountability and fairness became the cornerstones of law enforcement. With the initial legal victories behind them, Kimberly and her allies focused on long-term solutions to rebuild trust between the police and the community. Community forums became regular events, offering a platform for open dialogue and mutual understanding. Through these meetings, both officers and residents shared their experiences, fostering empathy and collaboration. One significant initiative was the establishment of the Cedar Falls Community Police Advisory Board, CPAB. Comprised of community leaders, activists, and former officers, the CPAB served as a liaison between the public and the police department. Their role was to oversee the implementation of reforms, provide feedback, and ensure that the department remained accountable to the community it served. Kimberly played a pivotal role in shaping the CPAB's agenda, advocating for continued training, transparent reporting mechanisms, and regular audits of police practices. Her first-hand experience had given her invaluable insights into the areas that needed the most attention. Despite the progress, not all wounds had healed. Kimberly often found herself haunted by the memory of her wrongful arrest, the cold pavement, the pain of shackles, the fear that had gripped her in that tense moment. She sought therapy to navigate the trauma, recognizing that healing was a continuous journey. Marcus supported her through every step, encouraging her to express her emotions and reaffirming his belief in her strength. Their conversations delved into the broader implications of their fight, emphasizing the importance of self-care and mental well-being in the face of relentless advocacy. Aisha, inspired by her mother's courage, became a vocal advocate within her own spheres of influence. She organized student-led initiatives, focusing on racial equality and the importance of standing against injustice. Her efforts were met with enthusiasm and respect, further solidifying her role as a leader in her community. The broader Cedar Falls community also embarked on a path of healing. Memorials were created to honor those affected by wrongful arrests, serving as reminders of the ongoing struggle against systemic racism. Educational programs in schools emphasized the importance of diversity, inclusion, and the value of every individual, regardless of their background. As months turned into years, the legacy of Kimberly Washington's ordeal transformed Cedar Falls. The town became a beacon of progressive policing, admired by neighboring communities and even featured in national media as a model for reform. Kimberly continued her medical career with renewed purpose, balancing her duties as a surgeon with her role as an advocate for justice. She spearheaded initiatives to integrate mental health support for officers, recognizing that addressing the root causes of aggression and prejudice was essential for lasting change. The Cedar Falls Police Department saw a steady increase in diversity within its ranks, with officers from varied backgrounds bringing different perspectives and fostering a more inclusive environment. Recruitment efforts focused on attracting individuals committed to upholding the values of fairness and respect, further strengthening the department's ties with the community. Recognizing the importance of mentorship, Kimberly established a scholarship fund for young Black women pursuing careers in medicine and law enforcement. She believed that representation mattered and that providing opportunities for the next generation would help sustain the progress they had achieved. Her mentorship extended beyond financial support. Kimberly became a guiding force for aspiring professionals, offering advice, sharing her experiences, and encouraging resilience in the face of adversity. Her mentor benefited from her wisdom, learning not just the technical skills of their professions but also the importance of integrity and advocacy. Yet, Kimberly understood that their work was far from over. While Cedar Falls had made significant strides, the pervasive issue of racial profiling and systemic racism extended far beyond the town's borders. She collaborated with national organizations, sharing Cedar Falls success stories and advocating for similar reforms nationwide. Conferences were held, bringing together activists, law enforcement officials, and policymakers to discuss strategies for combating racial injustice. Kimberly often took the stage, her presence commanding yet approachable, inspiring others to pursue justice with the same unwavering commitment she had demonstrated. The transformation of Cedar Falls reverberated through every facet of the community. Trust between residents and law enforcement had been rebuilt, not through empty promises but through tangible actions and sustained efforts. The once divided town now stood united, bound by a shared commitment to equality and justice. Local schools incorporated comprehensive anti-bias training into their curricula, educating students from a young age about the importance of diversity and the detrimental effects of prejudice. Teachers received specialized training to support students of all backgrounds, ensuring that education remained a tool for empowerment rather than division. Businesses collaborated with community leaders to create inclusive hiring practices and support minority-owned enterprises, fostering an economic environment that reflected the town's values of equity and opportunity. For Kimberly, the journey had been arduous but ultimately rewarding. She stood in the hospital parking lot one evening, reflecting on how far they had come. The new security cameras and improved lighting were small changes, but they symbolized a broader shift toward safety and respect. Her phone buzzed with a message from Tanya Brooks, a reminder of the day they had won the lawsuit together. "Thank you for never giving up. Cedar Falls is better because of you." Kimberly smiled, her heart full. "We're in this together, Tanya. Together, we can make a difference." As she walked to her car, she noticed a group of young medical students gathered nearby, engaged in a spirited discussion about racial justice. Among them was the young student she had mentored a year ago, now speaking passionately about her own experiences and the importance of advocacy. Kimberly felt a surge of pride. The future was in capable hands, and while the fight for justice was ongoing, the seeds of change they had planted were blossoming. Years passed, and Cedar Falls continued to evolve. The policies they had implemented served as a blueprint for other communities grappling with similar issues. Kimberly's dedication never waned, her commitment to both healing her patients and healing her community driving her forward. New challenges arose, but with each one, Cedar Falls faced them head-on, guided by the lessons learned and the resilience forged through adversity. The bond between the community and the police department deepened, grounded in mutual respect and a shared vision for a just society. Kimberly's legacy extended beyond her immediate efforts. Statues were erected in her honor, not just for her professional achievements but for her unwavering stance against injustice. These memorials served as daily reminders of the power of one individual's courage to ignite a movement, inspiring countless others to stand up against oppression in all its forms. Her family remained her anchor, their collective strength a testament to the bonds forged through struggle and triumph. Marcus continued to educate future generations, ensuring that the values of equality and justice were ingrained in the minds of young people. Aisha, now a prominent activist herself, spearheaded national campaigns advocating for police reform and racial equality, her leadership echoing her mother's influence. As Kimberly approached the twilight years of her career, she took solace in the tangible changes she had helped create. The Cedar Falls she once knew, marked by mistrust and fear, had transformed into a community defined by cooperation and understanding. Her halls, once echoing with the sounds of emergency surgeries, now resonated with the discussions of policy meetings and community forums. The hospital had become a hub for both medical excellence and social advocacy, embodying the interconnectedness of health and justice. On one serene autumn evening, Kimberly attended the opening of a new community center, a state-of-the-art facility dedicated to fostering dialogue and collaboration between residents and law enforcement. As she stood before the crowd, her eyes met those of Captain Davis, Maria Hernandez, and Lieutenant Green, now allies in the ongoing pursuit of equality. "Today," Kimberly began, her voice steady and full of conviction, "we celebrate not just the opening of this center, but the spirit of unity and progress that defines Cedar Falls. Let this be a beacon of hope and a reminder that change is possible when we work together with empathy, understanding, and an unwavering commitment to justice. The crowd erupted in applause, the energy in the room electric with hope and determination. It was a testament to the power of collective action and the unwavering spirit of those committed to making a difference. Decades later, Cedar Falls stood as a testament to the power of resilience and the enduring pursuit of justice. The legacy of Kimberly Washington lived on through the countless officers and community members who continued to uphold the values she championed. Her story was taught in schools, her name synonymous with courage and integrity. Statues of Kimberly adorned key locations around town, each one serving as a reminder of the nights filled with fear, the days of relentless advocacy, and the years of transformative change. Young children visited the memorials, inspired by the stories of those who fought against injustice and worked tirelessly to create a more equitable society. The Cedar Falls Community Police Advisory Board evolved into a robust organization, constantly adapting to new challenges and ensuring that the department remained accountable and responsive to the community's needs. Regular assessments and open forums kept the dialogue ongoing, preventing complacency and fostering continuous improvement. Kimberly's own institutional legacy was secured through the endowment of the Washington Scholarship Fund, supporting young Black women pursuing careers in medicine and law enforcement. Her efforts ensured that future generations had the resources and mentorship needed to succeed and continue the fight for justice. On a crisp autumn morning, as the leaves painted the town in vibrant hues of red and gold, Kimberly sat in her study, reflecting on her journey. The walls were adorned with photographs of community events, awards, and memories that chronicled the transformation of Cedar Falls. Marcus entered the room, a warm smile on his face. "Free time today?" he asked, coming to sit beside her. Kimberly nodded, a contented sigh escaping her lips. "A little. I was just thinking about how far we've come." Marcus took her hand, squeezing it gently. "We've done a lot. Haven't we?" She smiled, her eyes glistening with gratitude. "Yes, we have. But there's still so much to do. The fight for justice never truly ends." Elena Martinez joined them, her presence a reminder of the legal battles they had won together. "I heard about the new mentorship program," she said. "It's making a huge difference. We're all contributing in our own ways," Kimberly replied. "Every step forward, no matter how small, builds towards a more just and equitable future." As the sun set, casting a golden glow over the town, Kimberly felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The memories of that fateful night lingered, but they were now overshadowed by the lasting change she had helped create. Her life had become a tapestry of resilience, advocacy, and unwavering commitment to justice, a legacy that would inspire generations to come. Years later, as an honored guest at a national conference on policing and racial justice, Kimberly stood before a diverse audience, sharing her story. Her voice resonated with experience and empathy, each word a testament to the power of collective action. "Change is never easy," she began, her gaze sweeping the room. "It requires courage, perseverance, and an unyielding belief in the possibility of a better world. We've seen what can happen when we allow ourselves to be separated by fear and mistrust, and we've also seen what can happen when we come together with a shared vision for justice." Audience members listened intently, many nodding in agreement as Kimberly recounted the challenges and triumphs of Cedar Falls. Her story was not just one of overcoming adversity but of transforming a community through empathy, accountability, and sustained effort. "As long as there is injustice," she continued, "our fight continues. But together, with courage, compassion, and a commitment to equality, we can create a world where every individual is treated with the dignity and respect they deserve." The applause that followed was heartfelt, the audience moved by her authenticity and dedication. Kimberly stepped down from the podium, knowing that her work had made a difference and that the seeds of change she had planted would continue to grow, fostering a more just and equitable society for all. Decades later, Cedar Falls remembered the night that changed everything as the beginning of a new chapter. Statues of Dr. Kimberly Washington stood in prominent public spaces, symbols of her unwavering dedication to justice and equality. Young children, inspired by her story, marched proudly in school events advocating for social justice, their voices carrying the lessons of resilience and unity taught by the generations before them. The Cedar Falls Community Police Advisory Board had grown into a powerful institution, guiding the police department with wisdom and accountability. Regular community police dialogues became an integral part of the town's fabric. Preventing issues from festering and ensuring that the bond between protectors and protected remained strong, Kimberly's scholarship fund flourished, supporting countless Black women who pursued careers in medicine and law enforcement. These women, inspired by her example, went on to become leaders and advocates in their own right, continuing the legacy of change and progress. As Mount Carmel High School celebrated its latest graduating class, one student stood out, Aisha Washington, now a successful civil rights attorney. Her speeches were filled with stories of her mother's courage, and she dedicated her practice to ensuring that no one else would endure the injustices her mother had faced. Kimberly watched proudly from her home, surrounded by family and friends. The journey had been long and fraught with challenges, but the transformation they had achieved together was worth every step. The wrongful arrests and racial profiling that once plagued Cedar Falls were relics of a darker past, replaced by a community united by a commitment to justice, equality, and understanding.